Welcome to I Know How You Feel, a podcast for common experiences not so commonly shared. This is a platform for growth, connection, and mindful conversation. Today on the podcast, we have Becky. Becky is a mother, author, and teacher, and she's here to share her experience with breast cancer. Let's connect with Becky. Hi, Becky. Thanks for coming on today.
Thanks for having me.
Today, we're going to talk about Becky's journey with breast cancer. 1 in 8 women in the United States will be diagnosed with breast cancer in their lifetime. And so I feel like this is a really important conversation to have. So walk us right into it. How did you find out that you had breast cancer?
I kind of found out shortly after we got married. I mean, this is going to be, I don't know, TMA, but my husband initially had found the lump. And then I went to see my surgeon, and he had first said that this was just a clogged duct and not to worry about it. But if it's there in 6 months, I want you to come back. Well, that was where I goofed. I went a year and a half and it was still there. And we were in the midst of trying to begin a family, and it wasn't happening. And I was in a spot where I'm like, well, this could present a problem for nursing. Maybe I just want to get rid of it. I had some family history of it. My grandmother had passed away before she was 48, or maybe was 48 when she passed away of breast cancer. So it was in my family. And I just thought, well, it's still there. It hadn't, in my opinion, changed at all, but I just wanted to get rid of it. So I went back and he measured it. We did an ultrasound and it hadn't changed. The measurements were the same size from, a year and a half previously. And had the mammogram, did all the protocol. He had scheduled to just your family history, let's get rid of it. So I did all the things, had the mammogram, which came back inconclusive. It didn't even really show up because my breasts are so dense, which is a very common issue with diagnosing women who are young, who have not had any children. Your breasts tend to be more dense. So, and at that time, there wasn't any kind of other forms of imaging other than mammograms and ultrasounds. So we just scheduled for the surgery, and I went in with the notion that this wasn't going to be anything, from everyone telling me it didn't look like cancer, didn't feel like cancer, it hadn't changed. So I went in on that Friday for surgery. My mom and my husband were there. And while I was in recovery, they got pulled into a room privately, and that's just never a good sign. And he knew right away. He didn't need pathology to tell him that what was inside me was cancer. But it still went to pathology, but he knew right away that it was cancer. We just didn't know what kind or how aggressive it was or how big it would be. So I woke up and didn't know right away. My mom and my husband really didn't know how to tell me. And then they finally did tell me that it was cancer, and I just couldn't believe it, because I went in thinking I had nothing to worry about. And I was only 29 at the time, so I didn't really think I had to worry about it yet.
Yeah, I was going to ask what your initial reaction was. Like, you come out of surgery and then you get that news and you still have to recover. Like, how did you start to process that news?
Well, I kept asking probing questions to my mom and to my husband, like, so what did he say? Does he feel like it's anything to be concerned about? And they just kind of circled around the issue. Bless my husband's heart, he got me breast cancer golf balls. And it was just like, he didn't know how to tell me. And finally, my mom said that Dr. Rienstra had told them that he feels it's cancer, but that they caught it early. So at that point, you're just in this holding pattern, which is I've said this before, that is the hardest time in a journey sometimes when I think about it. All you know is you got cancer, but you just don't know where it is or how aggressive it is or what this is going to look like. And you have all these questions and no answers. And you just got to wait it out. And that is so hard.
And what did they talk about for treatment? Was that something you went into right away? And did you go with what the doctor said, or did you get a couple of different opinions?
So God blessed me with my best friend who happens to be an oncology nurse. And at this time, there was a brand new cancer hospital that had just opened up, and she was working there. And the surgeon or the oncologist at the time was like the one to, if you could get him, that's who you want. And through her and through my surgeon, we were able to get that done. And so, so initially you're told you have it, and then you kind of are just waiting. I did not take it well. I was not a very good patient after I found out about that. We had to wait for a phone call. So he had it sent to pathology, the surgeon, and he's had it sent to pathology, and it came back on that Wednesday. It was a Tuesday or a Wednesday the following week. So I had my surgery on a Friday, and then I had to wait like 4 or 5 days for the pathology. He personally called me. So my surgeon, he was just the sweetest thing. He personally called me and told me over the phone that it was confirmed that I had ductal carcinoma and lobular. And ductal carcinoma is probably the most common, from what I understand, of breast cancers. Lobular is a little less common. And what that basically meant for me was that I had an 80% chance of getting it in the other breast. So like mastectomy was definitely on the table. Like if I could have had them lopped off my body that very day, I would have. If my body had parts of it that were breeding grounds for cancer, I really didn't want them on anymore. So like that was a no-brainer for me in terms of what that part of my journey was going to be. I was just really hoping I wasn't going to have chemo. That was what I think I was the most fearful about. So after that, then he told me to show up at his office the next morning. And so we show up, and my husband, my mom, and my best friend come, which I've told other cancer patients and people who are in this journey to always bring somebody with you, just so that you have someone to write down any special comments or information that the doctors provide, because you are kind of like filtering out a lot. Like you're not really listening. You may hone in on 1 or 2 phrases and you forget the rest. At least that was my experience. And bless my best friend, she just knew me so well. She just wrote down anything positive Dr. Rienstra, who was my surgeon, was saying, like anything positive. She's like, I just wrote it down. And so we had that meeting, and then that's when he and I went back into the examining room, and I looked up at him and I said, do you think you got it all? And he says, no, I don't. I think there's more in there. So I was a little discouraged and very fearful at that point, because it had been in there, from my understanding, at least 1.5 years. And you're thinking, gosh, it's going to be everywhere. So you then go, and he scheduled like a bone scan, chest x-ray, and a liver enzyme test. So they know that breast cancer spreads to the liver, the lungs, and the bones if it metastasizes. And so I had to have all that done. And he had me already scheduled for the next phase of the surgery. He was going to do what's called a partial mastectomy. So my tumor happened to fall straight up 12 o'clock on my nipple, on my left nipple. And so he took off my nipple, my areola, and then he coned me. He went really deep into my breast tissue and wanted to make sure there was nothing buried inside there. And he took out, I believe, at least 9 lymph nodes from under my left arm, just to make sure that, there was it didn't travel in the lymph nodes, because then that changes your stage of cancer. So that was then scheduled that following Friday. So, things moved really quickly for me. So that was kind of the initial first week from the time I was told, which, you know, to the time that I had my second surgery. We already kind of knew going into that second surgery. Dr. Winch already had all the results back from my bone scan, my chest x-ray, and my liver enzyme, and all of that came back good. So I was going into that second surgery really confident that I was going to beat it, that I was going to be okay, that all the scary, scary, scary things about this journey were at least at that point, put at bay. So that, oh, I remember how that felt. That felt so good. So yeah.
And I know you kind of touched on it already and how you were feeling so fearful in those moments. Did you ever have moments during these surgeries and going in for these appointments where the despair just overwhelmed you? And how did you cope with that?
Well, thankfully, my faith really anchored me because cancer is so big and it's scary big at times. And so I was able to just really, really anchor myself. And I remember my mom telling me at times throughout my journey, I call her, I'm like, Mom, I should be feeling so scared right now. Why am I not scared? She's like, Rebecca, those are answered prayers of people that are praying for you. So just don't fight against it. I'm like, that's kind of true. Like, I think there were so many moments in my journey where God just showed up. Even when I didn't realize I needed it, he just was there. But yeah, you find times when you're alone, when you're staring in the mirror and you see that you're bald, you don't have any eyelashes, your body has been mutilated. There's still a lot of the unknowns. You're in the trenches of the war against this disease inside you. And it's those times when you're alone because your people, your support can't always be around you. You're going to have your moments where you break down and you're reminded that you are in the trenches of something. And you have your distractions and you have your everyday life that you just continue to go on because you have to. Life does go on. You get up, you brush your teeth, you care for the people in your family, you try to hold on to whatever normalcy you can, because that's all part of, in my opinion, the healing that has to take place while you're in the trenches of this experience. So, yeah, I would say it's when you're alone. And then there's many phases in the journey you have to grieve. I mean, you grieve the minute you're told you have it because the life you had before is instantly changed. That life is what you knew life to be before your diagnosis, and the life you have after are drastically changed. It'll never be the same. And that's good and there's bad with that. But I know that I didn't get through it alone. And even in those moments where you feel alone, because you do, I knew that I wasn't. But you have to just get on your knees and pray and trust that God is going to get you through each step. He's already way ahead of it. And he revealed himself in so many ways throughout the entire journey.
How long was it between diagnosis and remission for you? I know that there was a lot in between and treatments, but between actually finding it and then there was the 1.5 years and then you went into treatment, and then when did you find out that you had it in remission and what did that feel like?
Well, from what I understand, and correct me, I'm not super knowledgeable in all of it, but like with breast cancer, I don't know if they use the term remission. It's more like they staged me as stage 1. I had a 1.7 centimeter tumor that was invasive. I had one lymph node that was involved, but it was within the blood cells or it never left the actual spot. It was contained, is from what I recall. I'll have you know, I never read any of my pathology reports. They were too scary for me. So I would get the cliff notes from my best friend. She would read them and she would read to me the things that she knew I could handle. I just was all about, what do I have to do? I didn't want to know about the details of the disease. I just wanted to know what I had to do to get through it. And I tell people it's about a year. So from the time of my first lumpectomy, when I found out that it was breast cancer, to where I finally felt like, okay, I've got hair on my head again. I had my final phase of reconstruction. It's about a year. So I was diagnosed the weekend of Memorial Day of 2005. And then it was in 2006, that summer, I finally had hair on my head, and my reconstruction was finalized. So it's about a year journey. And then because mine was estrogen fed, my oncologist told me that I couldn't have children for 5 years. And then that was hard because I thought I had already done everything, but because my cancer was estrogen fed, you're not allowed to get pregnant, because obviously pregnancy increases your estrogen levels. And then the tamoxifen that I was on for 5 years can also cause birth defects. So yes, my journey in that sense was done, but then I still was on hold with really having complete control over my life. Cancer still had a pulse on it. And that was because of my age. And when it hit, that really was hard.
And I know you said that, life completely changed after your diagnosis. Coming out on the other side of it, just knowing that, like you said, your hair is starting to grow back, you're starting to kind of regain a sense of normalcy to a degree. Describe the difference between who you were before you got that diagnosis and kind of who you became after through that experience.
Oh, well, I mean, my faith definitely will never be the same, because I literally could feel God with me, like in a way that you can't unless you've been in something like this. Can you really fully describe? Because, like I said, that peace that I thought, I should be scared right now. And, why am I not? And just things like that are just how, God provided me with the support that I needed through that journey. With really great doctors and nurses who could meet my needs emotionally and physically, which is hard to find in the oncology world. That my best friend is an oncology nurse. Like, you see how God is in all these details. Like, God is a very big God, but in this experience, I saw how detail oriented God is too. Things that you just maybe wouldn't pay much attention to, but are so big. So the Becky before and the Becky after, I would say my faith is definitely more anchored and strong. I'm still quite a fearful person. I think that's just part of my DNA. It's probably one of my biggest sins for sure, is that, you go through something like this, and every little pain or ache, going to doctors, I have like the white coat syndrome. I hate going to the doctor. I hated it before, but I really hate it now. So it just, there's that piece too. Like, you have to overcome those fears, and not every time you're going to go to the doctor is it going to be bad news. So you have to just pull yourself through it, push yourself through that paralyzing fear, because that's not good either. So that I would say is that part of me that I had before was always kind of an anxious person. I was always afraid of certain things and fearful at times, but man, I mean, God really put me through something that was probably one of my biggest fears, and showed me that He is faithful through it. And I have to cling to that. So I would say that the Becky before and the Becky after, my faith is definitely far stronger than it ever was before.
Have you been able to kind of channel that fear into, I guess, like being proactive about your care? Like how do you care for your body and breasts differently than you did in your 20s before you knew about the cancer?
Well, I probably should be better at it than I am, but definitely vitamins. I exercise. Uh, I try to advocate for other people. Know you're normal. Like if something wasn't there before, don't be afraid to bring it, to your doctor's attention. Um, Oftentimes it is nothing. 9 times out of 10, it's not anything you need to worry about. But still, if it wasn't there before, make sure you advocate for yourself. Yeah, I think I'm more in tune to my body, almost too much. Um, my people would probably tell you I get a little bit neurotic at times about it, and I get scared about things that maybe are not a big deal. Um, you're just more heightenedly aware to everything. So, yeah, I would say that exercise is important, not as much as I'd like it to be currently, but I try to make it a big part of my life, along with vitamins and eating somewhat of a healthy lifestyle. I would say is probably the biggest thing. And going to my doctors like I should, even though it's very nerve-wracking when I do, but I go.
That's really good. I don't think that you can be overly neurotic, honestly, about your health, as somebody who's gone through my own chronic illness things, and I was totally gaslit for like 20 years in the system, and I kept pushing for a diagnosis. Like you said, being an advocate for yourself is so huge because, if they would have found that lump and then blown it off, and then you trusted, you know, someone else
Hmm.
rather than your intuition or what you were feeling, then that's a whole situation. So I really appreciate that you say that advocating is so important because it really is, especially knowing you're normal and knowing what's
Hmm.
not right. If a doctor does tell you it's right and you don't feel like it, go see another doctor.
Hmm. And my surgeon, he said that if he took out every lump or bump he found in people, that's all he'd do is be in an operating room. So like you pay attention to the ones that send up red flags or seem to have some suspicion. And like he said, like to me, if it's there in 6 months, you need to come back. Well, that was on me. It was still there and I didn't go. I just lived in this world of it's just a clogged duct. I didn't think anything of it. And I didn't even think, I mean, there was kind of in the back of my head, but I'm like, no, I'm way too young. I'm way too young. I didn't think it would hit me. I knew I'd worry more about it. I remember thinking, I'll worry about this when I'm 40. I'm not there yet. So, and I knew it, like I said, I knew it was in my family history. And my aunt had just been diagnosed a month before me, and they had found hers really early. So she just had to have radiation. But then that was another thing that I'm like, oh gosh, okay. So now it's not just my grandma that died of it, but my aunt has just been diagnosed. Maybe I should just really be just go get this looked at and hopefully he'll take it out. And he knew it had to come out just because it had been there for so long. And he knew my family history. So, but he took it out with the pretense that he didn't think it was anything either. So, yeah.
And it's just so great to have such a great medical team and support system like you did. I think everybody should have a best friend who's a nurse. I feel like that was the magic that
Yes.
you had in your journey for sure. And then after you wrote a book
Yes.
for children, tell us about the book and tell us how you got inspired to write that book.
So I teach preschool, and at the time, my stepdaughter was around 6 years old, and I was looking for any kind of literature I could find about how to help her understand the changes that I was going to face, but yet not let it be fearful and scary, or talk about death, because I mean I was fighting to live. So I searched and searched, and I'd find books that had metaphors about butterflies or would talk more medical about everything, and I didn't really want any of that. I wanted hope. I needed something that would provide not only her hope but me. And throughout my journey, I remember telling all my friends in my circle of people that I'm like, you know what, when this is all done, when I am done with this crap, I am going to write a book called Still Me, because I kept saying that to myself, and I would say it to her and to other people. You guys, yes, I look different. I maybe can't do all the things I could before, but it's still me. I get it. I don't look the same. I'm limited at times of what I can do, but it is still me. And I would say that not just for her or for the kids around me, but I was saying it to myself too, to remind myself of that same assurance, because you don't look like yourself at all. You don't feel like yourself. And that's the crazy thing of a cancer journey, is like the medicine that they give you makes you feel sick. Like it makes you feel like you're going to die, because it's so draining. But it's also healing you. And that's the crazy part of the whole thing. So, kids get it when they see somebody bald. You're instantly initiated into that cancer group more times or not. Like that's usually the journey that most people take. You see somebody bald, you instantly equate, oh, they're sick, they have cancer. And kids as young as 6 get that, and even younger. So I remember saying that throughout my whole journey, like, that's it. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to write a book, because I couldn't find anything for her, or for me for that matter, about how do I get her and I to talk about this and not be scared. And so I did. I wrote a book called Still Me, and it's a journey between when a mother is diagnosed with cancer and her child, and just the questions and the words and things that the child hears through conversations and the reactions that they witness with the parents and their support group. And it's chronicled through a year. So like it shows, and the imagery in the book is the mom is a tree. And here in Michigan, we go through all 4 seasons, and you feel the seasons and you see them. And there's no greater image of a season than a tree. And so the mom is told she's got cancer, and then she goes and starts her journey, and her leaves begin to fall off her head. And now it's in the middle of winter, and then the spring comes and her hair begins to grow back. And then by the end of the book, the mother is a person and no longer a tree with a head full of hair and looking like a mom, or as a woman. So that's kind of the preface of the book, but it's just the journey between the mom offering the child reassurance, and then it takes a pivotal turn when it's the child that reassures the mom at the end.
I love that. We would love to hear an excerpt from the book. Would you mind reading us a part that you really love?
Sure. So this is kind of when, the mom has been answering questions to reassure him for some time, like, will you be at my softball games? And will you be able to give me baths and rub my back? And just all these normal things that moms do with their kids. And then she says in the book, mother looked deep into my eyes, held me close to her chest. She uttered these words that put my fears to rest. God is bigger than any cancer could be. And side note, that is exactly the words that my surgeon gave to me. So don't worry, God is taking care of me. Mother has a tough battle ahead, but with love, faith, and prayer, there is nothing to dread. When this journey is over and done, victory is ours, the battle is won. No matter how I may look or feel, my love for you is strong and real. Be reassured, know and believe. It will always and forever be still me.
That is beautiful. I love that. I love that there is a book out there that is so grounded in faith and real, and just explains it. I just feel like you said, there's a lot out there that's just butterflies and trying to kind of gloss over things, but it's good to be able to have those real conversations with kids and bring up things that feel scary, so that they can feel included, and they can have things at their level that make them feel like everything's going to be okay.
Right.
And where can we find the book if we would like to get?
Well, you can find it on Amazon.
Okay. So if you want to get this book for someone you love, go to Amazon and type in Still Me, and you can find this lovely book. I just have one last question for you. What advice would you have for someone who's smack dab in the middle of this and they're not feeling open to they're just shutting down. They just don't know what's going on. They're upset. They can't get past that barrier to see maybe into the future. What is your advice for somebody going through it
No.
right?
Just that they're not alone when I know that that's probably what they feel. And that and to really encourage them to tap into their resources in their community. There are so many support groups out there, and your doctors and your nurses and the nurse navigators that are now available in hospitals can help navigate you through that. But also to just, if they don't have any faith, just get on your knees and ask God to walk beside you. He's there waiting with his hand, ready to help you and to remind you that he is in it with you. And also for them to just be at peace with their decision, because at the end of the day, yes, those who have gone through a cancer journey, we have that thread of commonality, but yet each of our journeys are unique to who we are. There's no one way to do anything. The important thing is for you to feel good with your decisions in your journey. And you have to be able to put your head on your pillow at night and be at peace with the choices that you've made in your journey. And that may look very different from mine or from someone else's, and that's okay. It's something that you have to feel good about because it's your journey. There is hope that this isn't the end. Sometimes it can be the brand new beginning you didn't even realize you needed.
I love that. I think it's so important to remind people that they have to remember who they are and that they're the ones that need to make the decisions and that they're not alone, because when we are going through hard things and darkness is all around, it's so easy to get encompassed by it. But if you don't have a large community or you don't feel like you have support, like Becky said, there's a lot of support groups online to tap into. And in your community, you can go to your local community center or library or even hospital, ask your medical providers where a support group is so you're not feeling alone in this journey. But thank you so much for sharing your story with us and inspiring all of us out there.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Thanks for hanging out with us this week. If you'd like to check out Becky's book, Still Me, it's linked in the podcast description. If you'd like to connect with me or have an experience you'd like to share, shoot me an email at letstalkitoutproductions@gmail.com. Also, if you liked our music, you can check out Quilter on Spotify. I Know How You Feel drops every other week. See you next time.